that includes the gracious help of the people from Geography and Maps, the Manuscripts Division, the Prints and Photographs Division, and other divisions in this wonderful institution. We also decided something, which I am extremely glad that we did. The first day that the exhibit opened, I went walking just to see what the reception was. I'm basically a nosy person. And I saw a woman with a stroller in front, underneath the banner, immediately in front of the hall where the exhibit was taking place. And she looked up and she said, "Armenia, what's that?" Well, she walked in, she looked at a few of the cases, she went back to the back wall where we had two listening stations where you could hear a part of the Armenian liturgy. You could also hear a glorious chorus from a 19th century Armenian opera, Amush. And she walked out of that exhibit knowing what Armenia was. So what we wanted to do was, if you bought the catalog, you would walk away knowing what Armenia was. And for that, we have an extensive introduction to the history of Armenia. Nothing that would really challenge you on a history class kind of level. And just to show you the antiquity of the Armenian people, I started with a petroglyph from the highlands of Armenia, which dates back some 5,000 to 6,000 years. And indeed, I wish I had known as much about DNA studies as I do now, because I could have shown what DNA studies have really proven about the development of humankind in Eurasia as it went on into Europe and elsewhere, and in some cases back into Africa. So we gave the readers what they needed to know about Armenia. You can see it's and then we had plates. Now, another thing you would need to know about the plates in the eBook: you can zoom them, you can make them large, you can freeze them, you can read them. And that is another beauty of the eBook format. But what we tried to do is to start with the earliest of the materials in the Library of Congress for Armenia. This is a book of Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, very popular format for Armenian manuscripts, copied in 1321 in Jerusalem. This is our oldest Armenian manuscript, and indeed one of the oldest Bibles in the entire Library of Congress. We then go on to a 1487 Book of Gospels. One thing you need to know is that Armenian manuscripts are richly illuminated, and they're known for the pigment. I bought this for the Library of Congress about 10 years ago. It has now become the subject of extensive scientific inquiry because of the nature of the pigments. So we use our materials for more than just beauty and for aesthetics. And I'm not going to take you through the entire page, do not worry. We go on to the early printed books, for instance, a commentary on the Book of Psalms, which is extremely important because although the Psalms are in the classical Armenian language, which is known as grammar, this is one of the first books where the modern Armenian language is depicted in the commentary. Just trying to give you an idea of our collection. We also have this missal from 1722, and I really don't mean to insult anyone here, but I call this the Missal for the Stupid Priest. Now, you may ask why that is. A missal is the text of the liturgy, which is used by the priest at the altar. It's not for the lay to use. The reason I call it Missal for the Stupid Priest is because it has wonderful illuminations and margins as you go along. You see the one in the top? You might not be able to. Throughout the text of this manuscript, there are pictures showing what the priest and the deacon should be doing at that very moment in the liturgy. It really is an extraordinary We also have transcriptions, manuscript translations of the Armenian Mass, prayer scrolls. photos of buildings that no longer exist. This building in the lower right-hand corner is the 10th century monastery of St. John the Baptist, which was destroyed in 1915 at the time of the Armenian Genocide. We have a picture of it in total condition. Ecclesiastical fabric dedicated to St. John the Baptist. Antique photos of historic Armenia. This is the island of Akhtamar in Lake Van. And I do wish that I could show you the ebook, because every time you see underlines, those are links to text that you can get in the ebook. I do want to point out one thing. These are not pretty books, and you can't see them. But one of the most important things about the ancient Armenian language is that they preserved works of classical antiquity. Many people now acknowledge that Arabic is important because of the Greek and Latin works that they preserved and brought into the modern times. Armenian and Syriac did the same. These are two examples. Philo Judaeus, a great Hebraic philosopher, and his essays, the most complete compilation are in Armenian translations. The Chronicle of Eusebius of Caesarea, the greatest and the earliest church historians, exists in its most complete format in Armenian, published in 1797 in the Armenian with the Latin translation. So again, we're not just talking about pretty books, we're talking about books that are important for scholarship. Manuscripts, scientific manuscripts, they're not all geographic manuscripts. Wonderful antique maps from the 17th and 18th century that are in our geography and map division. And here we have something that I find of great interest. This is, well, I think you can recognize who the person is. But I'm willing to bet even those of you who know Armenian will not be able to translate the title, because this is a book, one of many, some 2,000, and we have maybe 350. Book printed in what is known as Armeno-Turkish, which is Turkish language written in Armenian letters. This was a tradition that started several centuries ago, and indeed, in the 19th century, the Turks themselves were considering changing from the Arabic script into Armenian because they were not happy with the utility of Arabic for this. I have since learned from people who are studying Armeno-Turkish that it really was almost a separate language, neither Turkish, neither Armenian. People actually started speaking and thinking intellectually in this language. And here we have an Armeno-Turkish life of Napoleon Bonaparte. The first book, Armenian book published in Moscow, 1819, was a textbook for children. A wonderful book from 1831 in Vienna, which you can't see it, alas. It's a small pamphlet showing what firefighters should wear to avoid injury while fighting fires. One of the few things we have about firefighting in any language from that period. Cotton production in New Orleans, Armenian, 1859. Now, what is a book about cotton production being published in France in 1859? He says in his introduction, the person who translated it, because it's a translation of the Manchester Cotton Works, that he's doing it so that his compatriots left back in Armenia could increase their productivity and could increase their saying. But I don't think so. I'm a historian, and it rings a little phony to me that you have a book on cotton production published in Paris in 1859, 2 years before the American Civil War started, where France was on the side of, guess who, the Confederate States. Guess why? Because of the cotton trade. So I think we have something here that needs to be further studied. The Armenian community of Jerusalem, extremely rich Armenian community, has a monastery that dates back to the 5th through 7th century. This is the Church of St. James. This photograph is one of the most beautiful photographs I've seen anywhere. It's in our prints and photographs division. books on the Armenian community of Iran, books on the Armenian alphabet for children. Those who are Armenians here will realize that this is the Ver Kayestani, the Wounds of Armenia, by Joan Weeks, which is the first Armenian novel written in, actually the first piece of literature written in the vernacular as opposed to the classical language. And on and on and on we go. I don't want to really tell you everything that's in there. I will finish with one of my favorites. This is the first published administrative map of Yerevan, the capital of Armenia, published in 1920. I have visitors from Armenia. I show the map to them, and they say, they gather around trying to find out where their homes are now, because everything has changed, of course. And I delighted when I went, I'm sorry, I can be mean-spirited at times. I delighted when I went to the National Archives of Armenia and found out they didn't have it in Armenia. So we have something here they don't have, and that brings me a good deal of joy. And I wanted to finish with a book from modern-day Armenia. Why did I want to finish with a book from modern-day Armenia? Armenia, as I said, was known as the most literate of the 15 federated republics during the Soviet Union. Because of the war in Karabakh, because of independence and a variety of other things, the economic situation after independence in 1991 was severe. The quality of publishing went down. There's a brain drain as many of the most educated left the country. But I chose a book from 2010 that was published in Yerevan, which shows that the publishing tradition in Yerevan has rebound. They're producing extremely important works, both scholarly and literary, and this was very carefully chosen by me, because frankly I am a bit tired of this particular magnificent artist being labeled as Russian. This is a book which was published in Yerevan about the seascapes of Ivazovsky, who was an Armenian from the Crimea. I think my time is almost over, and actually I have done more than I thought I could do without the iPad. If you want to see how the functionality, I will be glad to show it to you after that. But if there are any questions about this, or about iBooks, or about technology at the Library of Congress, or how to use our collection, I'm glad if I have time. Do I have time? I have about 5 minutes left, at the most. Are there any questions? If not,
where was the first Armenian book printed?
Rome. No. And this is the thing about Hebrew, Armenia, and even Arabic. The first books were not published in the homelands. They were published by the diaspora, quite often wealthy because of their mercantile interests. If you believe Sepu Aslanian from UCLA, it's because they were port cities. I'm not entirely convinced. This tradition went on and on and on. Yes. So it was in Rome, and I'm just glad it happened. I just wanted to mention, however, it was not the first time that the Armenian alphabet appeared in print. It appeared in the first guidebook ever published, which was the Peregrinatio Interim Sanctum, the pilgrimage to the Holy Land in 1487. All of the Middle Eastern alphabets appeared, but they were wood blocks. They were not actually printed. Anything else? Thank you very much.